Due to the recent heightened focus on competitive effectiveness within the industry and the elevated profile of the use of comparators in clinical trials, there is an expectation for companies to justify not only the superiority or non-inferiority of their drug, but to also confirm the efficacy of the new drug product or the new indication that is being introduced into the market. Therefore, distinctive comparator procurement aspects need to be considered when initiating and executing a comparator study. It is no secret that healthcare costs are rising and keen public attention is being given to the general welfare of the human population. The pharmaceutical and biotechnology industry are being challenged and encouraged to evaluate the impact of different options that are available for treating given medical conditions for patients. This industry is being asked to compare similar treatments and best-in-class competing pharmaceuticals, as well as to analyze different approaches in drug therapy and surgery. These requests all stem from the government and public insisting on a thorough analysis of benefits versus risk, as well as cost. Comparative effectiveness programs exist worldwide, and they all serve a purpose to help ensure the safety and efficacy of pharmaceuticals, as well as to manage the cost of drugs and the overall cost of health care. As such, all clinical trials require the evidence of clinical effectiveness. So what are comparators? We know them as investigational or commercial products or even placebos that are used as a reference in a clinical trial. They are also referred to as investigational medicinal products where the drugs have been further manufactured or repacked or even used outside of their registered indication within a clinical trial. Although proof of clinical effectiveness is required, there is no explicit requirement to use comparators except when a sponsor is claiming superiority or when placebo comparison is not considered ethical. As stated before, comparators are used when new drugs are being developed and in the comparison of medical devices and medical procedures. End user is the patient, many of which are suffering from life-threatening diseases, and for them, our common goal is to deliver the highest quality product that is safe, effective, and affordable. To this point, clinical comparison helps to support this requirement. Comparators are a unique commodity, and the sourcing and project management process should not be underestimated. Availability is not a factor you can control, and market availability and manufacturing discretion may limit supply for clinical trials due to the obvious competitive reasons. Thus, comparators often have limited availability, short expiry dating, uncertain lead times, varied region requirements, complex logistics and distribution factors, and volatile prices. One could say that comparators are not your typical commodity, and these are just a few of the factors that need to be considered when procuring a comparator. Now, we understand that comparator sourcing is such a small segment in the overall clinical trial supply chain, but this sourcing has high demands on high-quality specifications, and due to this, has quite often impacted trial timelines very negatively. However, this can be mitigated depending on the clinical trial specifics and flexibility of your requirements. In most situations, commercial products being used as comparators are not always readily available, and this is applicable to the material as well as all supportive paperwork needed to support the assurance of quality of the material. Comparator sourcing also requires expiration dating that can support the lifespan of the clinical trial. Because most companies are comparing their product to the best-in-class drug product on the market, the most popular pharmaceutical is in high demand. This leads to the fact that comparators can have long lead times as well as stock shortages. Other unique aspects of comparators is being able to obtain supporting regulatory and import-export documentation for testing, filing, and distribution, as well as considerations to timelines in regards to needing to further manufacture the comparator. Last but not least, there is a cost factor. We can all attest to the cost incurred when bringing a drug to the market. Thus, comparators are expensive, and pricing is not always negotiable, mainly due to drug availability. To help facilitate comparator sourcing, we suggest that teams should determine the complexity of sourcing their chosen comparator and compile a sourcing strategy that will best suit the clinical trial. These efforts do not have to be done in a vacuum. There are several resources available that can be used as information banks. There are specialized comparator providers who have core competencies in comparator sourcing, and they can assist you in gathering information and determining product and documentation availability. Comparator specialists can also give insight on local price differences and share their experience on whether or not the supply is reliable and steady. This assistance can help you and your team to determine the safest, most economical option for supplying your clinical trial sites with the most suitable comparator. Our recommendation is to educate your teams on the unique aspects of the comparator by acknowledging the possibility of limited comparator drug availability, recognizing the value of securing expiration dating that will support the lifespan of the trial, confirming comparator lead times prior to material procurement and material delivery, understanding the importance of comparator documentation requirements in terms of product release, import-export, and testing and filing, incorporating flexibility to your timelines in regarding to needing to further manufacture the comparator, discussing and evaluating price differences amongst the various available drug presentations, as well as differences in prices within the various regions. So once you have educated your teams on the uniqueness of the comparator, we suggest that you determine the complexity of your comparator sourcing in your clinical trial, develop an executable yet flexible strategy, select a sourcing option that best suits your clinical trial, and assess the quality of both your sourced products and partners. Last but not least, as Murphy's Law will have it, things will happen, so always have a plan B and C.